Hi, it's Jane. Thanks for joining me to talk about sales and sales leadership. This week I want to talk about the role that your emotions play in making you a great salesperson or not. Now, I'm not talking about EQ. There's a lot of conversation about high emotional quotient and how important that is to be a great seller. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's not what I'm talking about today. I want to talk to you about 3 times when not being able to manage your emotions gets you in a jam in sales. The first one is when you don't know what trips your trigger. What do I mean by that? Well, there are certain things that people say. There are certain situations that we get into that trip our ego trigger. This is a very individual thing for us, you know. I mean, the things that trip my trigger are not going to be the things that trip your trigger. But I want you to know, what are the things that happen in a conversation or a scenario with a prospect or client that trip your ego trigger? Because once your ego is tripped, you are no longer present in the conversation. You are no longer managing the conversation well. You are no longer thinking about what the problems are that the customer is facing and what problems you need to solve for. I'll give you an example. When I was younger, I didn't really look my age, and so a lot of times people would treat me like a kid. I took that very personally, and so my ego would get tripped, and all I could do in that moment in time was try to prove to them that I knew something of value and I had something to contribute to the conversation. So in that moment, all I'm doing is feeding my own ego, and I'm not present in the moment with the client. Another scenario, people used to say to me, "No, you can't," whatever, fill in the blank. I used to take that as a personal invitation to prove, yes, I can. So what are the things that happen to you that trip your ego trigger? That's the first thing. The second thing is, great salespeople understand what kind of relationships need to be built in sales. They balance the need for relationship building with the need to be liked. So I've talked about this before, that salespeople who have a high need to be liked tend to not ask enough questions, they don't ask hard questions, and they give away the farm, right? So what I'm saying here is the kinds of relationships that we want to build in business are relationships where customers respect us, where they trust us, where they think that we have their best interest at heart, not necessarily relationships where they love us. So if you can separate yourself from that emotional need to be liked and manage sales relationships from that standpoint of respect and trust and that they think that you have their best interest at heart, then you are building the right kinds of relationships with your clients. And then finally, do you understand what the junk is in your trunk? So that's a term that we use in the South, junk in your trunk. And it really just means, what's the baggage that you're carrying around? And in this scenario, what I'm really talking about is your buying process. So we all have a way that we buy things, especially expensive things, right? You might be a price shopper. You might be a comparison shopper. You might be a person who needs to think it over a lot. And I'm not suggesting that you change the way you buy. What I'm saying is, do you know how you buy? Because it's very likely that you are tolerating those blockers, those stalls from your prospects and clients, because deep down, you get it. That's the way you buy, right? So do you understand what your buying cycle is? And what are those stalls that you're tending to accept from a client because that's like you, that's how you do it. So the 3 things I want you to really just think about this week are, do you know what trips your trigger? Do you balance the need for relationship with the need to be loved? And then finally, do you know what the junk in your trunk is? I hope you have a great week.